Much of what we learn about science, nature, and the environment happens outside of school and beyond the walls of museums, zoos, and nature centers. I have worked as an independent environmental professional for many years and know there are others like me who interact with the public in communities worldwide. On the Talaterra podcast, we discover who these professionals are, what they do, and how they create change. Why do I focus on independent professionals? I focus on them because they move freely through communities. They move freely between schools, organizations, businesses, programs, and other informal learning environments. They are positioned to meet the public where they are, and this is powerful. Thank you for joining us today. I'm your host, Tania Marien. Hello and welcome back to the show. You may have heard about the value of collaborating with others. You and I can probably point to several examples of collaborative projects that we've seen in our respective domains as we roam around the world of environmental education. Today, we'll see an example of what cross-sector collaborations can look like as we learn about partnerships from today's guests. Dinah Awino Kawino is the founder and director of Akadi Eco and Mentorship Ventures. Akadi Eco is a consulting firm based in Kenya. It focuses on bringing environmental mentorship and sustainability solutions to educational and community spaces. This year, Akadi Eco is leading an initiative called Pendo Mazingira. Pendo Mazingira is Swahili for love environment. Awino describes this program as an eco-sensitivity mentorship program designed to cultivate a sense of environmental belonging through nature-based sensory experiences. Pendo, as we'll refer to this program in the episode, was created for youth and adults. Pendo engages with youth at the places they are already experiencing, so the program does not create new spaces for them. With adults, though, the approach is different. With adults, Pendo collaborates with adult programs and offers through these programs their own workshops, talks, trail walks, and other types of programming. With youth, Pendo's objective is eco-empathy. With adults, Awino says the objective is to revive the essence of nature as an ally. How is the program working? Let's find out. Awino, thank you so much for being on the show today. We've had other conversations about your work overall and about your current project, and I am thrilled to introduce you to listeners today and to talk about your project. What stands out to me about how you work is just how you work with partners and how you reach out to your community. And so I'm excited to show people how you work with partners, about all of your community work and all the many things that you've been involved with. And so if we can start at the beginning, could you introduce yourself and tell listeners a little bit about your background?
Such a thrill to be here, Tania. Thank you for hosting me. My name is Awino Kawino. I go with Dinah as well. So Dinah Awino Kawino is my name. I was born here in Kenya, and particularly I come from the Lake region. Actually a Luo, a Nilot, and I'm very proud. I am a young person myself. I did my studies at a preparatory school in Kenya called Maxwell, then proceeded to my secondary school studies in a national school called Kisumu Girls, and then I proceeded to Kenyatta University for my bachelor's at the Department of Environmental Sciences, then proceeded for my master's still at Kenyatta University. I'm also a young mother, very proud, and I'm very happy to be here. I'm the founder of Akadi Eco and Mentorship Ventures, and I'm very proud to talk to you today, Tania.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. can you tell us a little bit about Akadi Eco and the consultancy that you started? Because a lot of your work, it revolves around your consultancy and all of your partnerships and the many, many different ways that your partnerships happen is based around that. So can you tell us how you started Akadi Eco?
All right. Thank you so much. So Akadi Eco is actually a creative name. I went through a creative program with JZ, and it inspired me to develop a creative angle to my name. So Akadi is just abbreviations of my name, and Eco is central to my work. I started this in 2022, started as an initiative. I was working with old people, inspired by my uncle who stays in Homa Bay County. I started working with old people who are weaving baskets. I was very interested in baskets because it was at the time when I was trying to understand if we can stop using plastics. I was just getting to know about polyesters, and I was not very happy with how we're using a lot of plastics. And so, being in the textile space, I started noticing that we can actually start embracing natural fibers. So I started working with old people weaving baskets, started creating baskets for children, baskets for young people. Actually, young people are the ones who love a lot of sustainability work. And they were my greatest supporters. And proceeded to work with old women as well in a market called Karioko Market here in Kenya. And I partnered specifically then with Dr. Manuel Lanfart. He's the founder of Kwambio. It's a carbon up. I started selling these baskets to Switzerland. So Dr. Manuel Lanfart created a market for me. But then I felt something was missing because I was an environmental educator as well. And I felt like I'm not educating. People are buying these baskets. Sometimes I'm giving them for free, even to offices who need some green branding, because I was also in the space of green branding. And I just wanted to couple it with education, because then that is when we can change attitudes and minds towards environmentalism, because I didn't want to lose that. And so I said to myself that I have to make Akadi Eco service based. I have to sell the service. I have to move with the service instead of the product. And I have to stop creating materials. When people are buying, they do not understand why they are buying the materials. What is the inspiration? And so I started creating programs for education, such that if you would buy the basket, I would put some small cards for you to read around it, to learn about nature, to learn about why this matters to me. And that is what's changed me, because previously I used to be Akadi Souls, and then I became Akadi Eco, because I felt Akadi Eco encompasses the education that I'm very passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to lose that. And so I just felt that if people get to know why they buy what they buy, then they can be better stewards of the environment, and they're going to be less materialistic and more ecocentric. And so I started building Akadi Eco from there to date.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with several partners differently, particularly academia, which is where most of my partners are. I've also worked a lot with the nonprofit, which is where I actually started my journey as an environmental professional. And then I've also worked with youth groups. To date, I work with youth groups a lot. But I don't want to forget a very strong stakeholder, which is faith. I've worked with faith for the longest time. I mean, even before I started Akadi Akadi Eco, I was working with faith. I was training parents, I was training teenagers, and I used to get a lot of requests from members of the faith telling me that I need to take them for nature walks because environmentalists so very few in my local church. And I truly started finding my passion in the eco-theology aspects, green transitions, and environmental education. So within that nexus, I belong.
It's beautiful. I love how how you explain that within that nexus. That's where you belong. Yes. Yes, and your work definitely reflects that. And I'm also wanted to tell listeners that your master's project focused on green growth practices in the textile industry. And that started, I assume, around the same time as Akadi or just before?
So my first employment was in a company called Naya Africa Limited, and I got my first salary. And when I got my first salary, I wanted to buy a green product. That was in 2018. That was when I was first employed officially. And I went to a shop. I looked for something that is very green, and I found a sisal bag. I bought two of them. And one of them, I gave it to my mom. She has it to date. And that's when I started loving sisals. I started loving sisals. Although I did not start Akadi sisals then, you're right. I started my Akadi sisals just when I was starting my master's. Not really starting, but when I was in between my research master's, that's when I started Akadi sisals. But then my research compelled me because I got to learn a lot about materials. You know, in the textile space, there are a lot of materials. Some are synthetic and some are organic and eco friendly. And I was very interested in learning more. That is why I selected that topic of green growth practices in textile manufacturing mills in Kenya. The reason why I also benchmark with the manufacturing sector is because the manufacturing sector is the leader of our GDP. You know, it's the one that generates revenue. And so I felt if the change can start from that, then it would trickle down to the whole of our society. Because these are the leaders who determine our economic models. My focus was mostly on the organic materials. And particularly, I was interested in three: the cotton, the sisals, and the reeds. The reeds are actually in my hometown. That is where I started learning from my uncle about this. I even did some videos because later on I got somebody who asked me to go train some women on how to do reed baskets. And I got a lot of customers actually who would buy these reed baskets. We mixed them with cow dung, and then we use the inner reed to create the baskets. It's just like basketry. But then my main aim was to see if we can embrace organic manufacturing. You know, I know this is far fetched, but I was just trying to find out that also as I was doing my research. Can it be organic in every way? Because the indigenous people in my community in Homa Bay, led by my uncle, are doing the reed baskets in a very sustainable way, using very little water, little energy, little forestry, little natural resources. So can we translate that into a whole manufacturing process? So my topic really exposed me to a lot of things. Actually, when I was starting this research, uh, my respondents told me we are very happy that finally an environmentalist is in this space in Kenya. There has been very little attention given to us, and we are very happy that finally you've come here in the textile space to benchmark with us. Also, just wanted to say that I learned with textile, but the concept of green growth can be replicated and learned in any sector. Can travel in any sector, yes.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. I always learn something new about your story every time we speak. I am just always inspired and so admire the work that you've done as a student and the work that you've done now with Akadi Eco and now the work that you are doing with Pendo Mazingira. And so can you tell us a little bit about your new program and your new initiative for this year?
Wow. So I'm just gonna say yay for Pendo. I mean, Pendo is everything right now for me. Um, you know, at the heart of Awino Kawino is values, and one of my greatest values is love. I just love because love is everything. So I've worked a lot in environmental centers. I've worked a lot in communities, and I feel like what we're lacking is just love, and it's just love for nature, you know. And when I connected that, I just found passion for Pendo. So Pendo started when I was just trying to reflect about the disconnections that I've experienced as a person. I've lived a lot in disconnection and trying to find the missing link. When I started my bachelor's, I was called by the government. So I did my examinations. I passed. I got a calling letter saying that you've been called to Kenyatta University to do a bachelor's degree in environmental education. And I immediately told my mother, "Mom, I don't want to be an environmentalist. I think I'm gonna change my course and I'm gonna be an engineer." So I got an A in physics. I have to be an engineer. Why did they call me for environment? So I was battling with it, and my mom told me, "Okay, so when you go to campus, just do what you want to do. If you feel like changing it, it's fine. Just fast go and settle in, and then you can change your course to a different course. That's fine. I support." So when I got to university, we got our timelines for the classes, and so I started my first unit, my first class. I remember I met a friend of mine called Karen, and she was also a student in the same class. So we went and attended the first class, and then the first class was touching on philosophies of environmental education, and I was like, "Oh my God, what course is this?" I had all that negativity around environmental courses because I didn't have a connection. I didn't have a connection at all. So I struggled with this for 2 years up to my second year. The person who started making me find a connection to environment is one of my professors who has also mentored me. Her name is Dr. Evelyn Wemali, and she taught me about environmental techniques. That she's the first person who brought about the aspects of attitudes on environment and how you need knowledge to understand attitudes and take action. That is when I started understanding environment is actually very important. But I suffered a lot of interdisciplinary chauvinism. I suffered a lot of disciplinary chauvinism, and I was very, very scared of sharing that the course that I'm doing to people. I think people would ask me, "What are you studying?" And I would be like, "I'm just in KU. I'm just in Kenyatta University. I'm just studying." I was not proud for a very long time. But then when I kept learning with Dr. Wimali, and then I started experiencing environmental field trips, I started loving the environment. And then something special happened. I started talking to my dad about it. And my dad told me something about myself, which I didn't know. He told me, "Do you know when we used to travel with you to the rural, you really used to love nature. In fact, you would tell me, please stop at Kericho. Kericho is a tea growing area in Kenya. Please stop at Kericho, Dad. I want to see the green. I want to see the green." And my dad said, "You know, even if you don't like that course, God gave you the course that you love because we've seen you growing and how you love green. This is the course that was meant for you." So that settled in. And then I started doing attachments with the Kenya Wildlife Services. I was in the environmental education section. I started guiding tourists who would come in. And I was taken through with one of the guides on ecological importance of each animal. And then I started loving the environment. I was like, wow, it's not the way we see it. So Pendo has come from that. I call Pendo an old soul that found its meaning when it was too old. Because Pendo should have started a long time ago. But Pendo started when I finally connected the dots. Pendo is a connection of disconnection to connection. And I understand how somebody can be disconnected from nature. Imagine I was so close to the environment as an environmental student, but I was still disconnected from nature. Pendo is for anybody who feels something or someone disconnected them from nature. And so they're not able to experience the environmentalism that is required, especially now when we're talking about water stress, land fragmentation, air pollution, and they're just disconnected from that conversation because they do not connect with nature at all. In fact, when I say this, I feel like crying because we have a lot of disconnection in our communities. You see somebody just opening the taps, they're leaving it open, not thinking about tomorrow. I've gone to industries, where I've seen interpretive signs switch off the lights. But nobody is following that because I don't connect with nature. I do not understand why I need to conserve. I do not understand why I need to be a good steward. That is the foundation of Pendo.
Yes.
But above all, I call Pendo a miracle program because Pendo is very playful. Pendo is not serious. Pendo is very simple. Pendo is based on values, on empathy, and largely connection from the lost disconnection. Because each of us has experienced nature, the air we breathed first when we were born, the tears that we experience whenever we're in pain. As a young mother, I saw my child crying for the first time. Those are tears and that's water. So actually our bodies are made of water. We experience nature every day, but that disconnection must be met by Pendo.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Why do you think there's a disconnection from nature? And in particular, two things you said that stood out to me. One is the environmental students. You said as an environmental student, you were not connected to nature. Do you think that was the case with other environmental students? I mean, what is it about the program, their experiences or life experiences contributes to that disconnection? You first mentioned that there is a hesitation in claiming environmental education as an interest. I've felt that tension as well, and I suspect that there are others who also feel that tension. And I know, at least for me, I can only speak for myself, is that sometimes it's just too much to explain. I mean, no one's, I just feel like nobody gets you. That's how I feel. And so what do you think what contributes to the impression of what environmental education is or what environmental educators do?
So, first and foremost, I was very sad when I went to Kenyatta University and I found out that the course was actually merged to another course. And I don't know why it was merged, but I've also had interactions with some of my former classmates, and some of them have gone to different fields for capacity because they believe in integrating environmental education to another field that is more strong. I'm just quoting somebody. It then finds value in our current society. To be honest, I will tell you that environmental education needs masters of integration, masters of interdisciplinary, and masters of mainstreaming. We have to know how to mainstream. We have to know how to integrate it into systems. It needs system
Yes.
thinking. While it can be a standalone, let me just confess, I was able to unpack my whole environmental education course just after I finished my master's. My environmental education was stronger, is stronger now that I've been able to understand it deeply. And what sparked the in depth understanding of the environmental education program that I went through, despite having a degree, was the experiences. So, experiential learning really worked for me. And I think we need to merge environmental education with professional field experiences, or rather professional engagements. If it's a standalone, theoretical, and very classroom oriented, it then becomes very static. And when it's merged with amazing experiences, it becomes a powerful force of change in our societies and communities. I think I'm naturally a proactive person. I've kind of slowed down now because I'm a mother, but I'm very proactive. And I think that is what helped me because I always wanted to confirm classroom knowledge with what is happening out there. And whenever I would learn in a classroom, oh, I've learned about animal welfare and the 5 freedoms of animals, then I would always sign up to those field trips to go see the animal orphanages, the animal parks. If I would learn about plants, I would go to a plant center. Actually, I've interacted with the botanist, and she amazed me because she's mastered all the plants, and that was amazing. So we need to see that. I think the seeing is what we are missing out as trainers. So if I would go back to my university to demonstrate or to say what would work best, I would say that the students need more seeing and more experiences and more hands-on to back up the education they've already gotten from their classroom.
You explained that so well, and I think a lot of people see that there's a lot to work on as a group, collectively, all of us together. So, let's talk about Pendo. You mentioned that it is based on a series of values, and when we spoke earlier, you outlined for me all the different values. Can you walk us through the values that are behind Pendo?
So, first and foremost, I just wanted to say that Pendo is a program that can travel, and Pendo is inspired by protection of nature and love for nature, and it wants to engage. But the values of Pendo are rooted in regeneration. They are rooted in sustainability. They are rooted in engagement and experiential engagement. I've actually been revisiting Pendo a lot just to see am I really achieving what we wanted Pendo to achieve? Are we really achieving what we wanted Pendo to drive in our societies? Pendo wants to drive appreciation for nature. Pendo wants to drive an intrinsic value for nature. Pendo wants to give you a powerful experience for nature, and it wants to change how you interact with nature. And lastly, Pendo wants to build a relational engagement for you to experience nature, not just as an asset, but nature as an ally. In fact, I will quote Dr. Stephen Cornelius, who was the Deputy Global Lead for Climate and Energy in the WWF. In 2022, he said, "Nature is the greatest climate ally, but natural systems are being pushed beyond their limits by the unrelenting pressure from climate change, pollution, overexploitation, and ecosystem conversion." Nature is alive, and that is what we believe in Pendo. I hope that covers the value.
Yes, it does. It does. Earlier, you had explained how you instill a love for land and a love for blue skies and love of air and water and wildlife, and how you host different conversations and experiences around all these different values. And so, what does a Pendo program look like? Can you walk us through an example and something that you do with your communities or with your schools and the people that you interact with?
Yes. So before I go to that, let me just give a background. Pendo is actually inspired by my research. When you go online in the Journal of East Africa Nature, you're going to see one of my publications, and I'm also doing a second publication with Frontiers of Sustainability. I've also done a book, actually. It should be in Amazon in the next 1 week. And Pendo focuses on 8 elements of nature. These elements are actually evidence-based because I did a research and I found out that we actually interact with land, with air, with the sky, with water, with the natural resources, with energy, with forests. Pendo wants to create experiences of connection for these elements. These are the elements that everyone interacts with. So Pendo is actually very inclusive. Creates spaces for you to experience water, the love for water. I call it Pendo Maji in Swahili. It creates spaces for you to experience land, the love for land. I call it Pendo Ardhi. It creates spaces for you to experience the air, the love for air. Pendo Hewa. It creates spaces for you to experience the sky. The sky is actually a very beautiful ecosystem. We call it Pendo Anga. It creates spaces for you to experience Plants, loving plants. I call it Pendo Mimea. It creates spaces for you to experience forests, love forests. I call it Pendo Miti. It creates spaces for you to experience the love for natural resources. In Swahili, I call it Pendo Rasilimali ya Asili. And lastly, it's the umbrella of it all. It creates spaces for you to love the environment. I call it Pendo Mazingira. This is a program that moves either as single element. I call it an elemental nature program. Or sometimes it moves collectively, but it's been very difficult to do it collectively because some people want to experience just aspects of it. They would prioritize water, they would prioritize air, or they would prioritize something different. I have been able to create a Pendo Mimea, which is in English, Love Plants program, with actually a program that I've been engaged with. This is an example since last week. And Pendo Wanyama, which I actually forgot to mention, which is Love Animals. I did something for them last week. We were experiencing Pendo Mimea and Pendo Wanyama, which is love plants and love animals. So everybody in the room would say the animal they want to be and why. And why that animal makes them feel grounded. So other people selected rabbits and they would say that it's because it's a clever animal. They would just appreciate it. Others would say the snake because it's sneaky and it likes shedding off, and they would borrow lessons from it. On Pendo Mimea, we were able to go through a session where we were creating a daily plan and we were learning from the plant. So people would talk about photosynthesis, for example. They would say when a plant wakes up, it converts sunlight into energy. And then it puts out its leaves so that they can absorb the sun. And we would reflect. So, how does that connect to you as a person? One of the things I believe in is we cannot appreciate what we don't connect with in one way or another. Because for me to experience Pendo myself, I had to connect with actually my Pendo journey started with animals. My Pendo journey started with Pendo Wanyama. And I really connected with animals. And I would not even hurt a fly because I would understand it has a place in nature. And its place cannot be replaced. That gave me eco-empathy. Pendo can take forms of sessions. Pendo can take forms of workshops. Pendo can take forms of motivational talks. I actually do eco-motivational talks. Pendo can take forms of career talks. Pendo can take forms of research because sometimes I contribute from a research lens. I work with volunteers as well. Pendo can take forms of books, actually trying to put together a series. I'm sure you're going to be the first to know. And Pendo takes the form of creative art. So recently I've been trying to collaborate with young people to sing songs that are connecting to nature. And that is how you can experience Pendo, because I created Pendo for us to experience the love that is unmet or lost or numbed or quiet or silent. Basically, I created Pendo so that we can experience the disconnect that we have with nature. It could be personal, it could be collective in a community. And lastly, recently, also preparing for the International Day of Play for Children, which is happening next week. And I'm going to be doing Pendo nature games with children. So I'm very excited about that. I'm going to maybe share some pictures. And Pendo is just beautiful. It's just beautiful. So it could take any form. Another episode is where I was working with an author and she wanted to experience Pendo. And we went together through her book. And I was able to highlight ways she can incorporate Pendo Mazingira, love for nature, in the social work that she's doing with children in the UK. And actually, she did a Substack of Pendo, and I was very inspired. Her name is Lisa Parks, so I'm just going to share a link to the Substack as well.
Please do share the links. Pendo is a beautiful, inclusive program with so many points of entry. It was created so thoughtfully and allows people to come to nature in their own way. It's just lovely. And you mentioned the interdisciplinary nature, cross-sector nature of the program, and also of the need to do more interdisciplinary outreach work, partnerships. Can you offer one example of a partnership that you have with someone or an entity in the field outside of what we know as, traditional environmental education?
Yes. So I've worked with people who are in the social sustainability space, just working with women and gender. And Pendo has helped them to create, like, for example, the organization I just mentioned called FOTR Africa has able to experience Pendo to help them connect their members so that they can support the social sustainability work. So we've also done Pendo with a program called the RAP program, which is a social wellness recovery program. And they wanted to see how Pendo can support environmental connections and support recovery for wellness for those people who are in substance abuse, people who are in addictions, and how connections for nature can help them find this recovery.
Beautiful. Like I mentioned earlier, your energy and your commitment to partnering stands out, and the many projects you've been involved in are it's really just amazing. And the work that you've done, I have a copy of your paper about your green growth practices in the textile industry. I will definitely link to that in the show notes. So beginning with this paper and your assessment of how textile mills work in Kenya and your master's work and the many other ways that you contribute to, work with, and support all the many partnerships that you've shared with me. It's a huge list. I can tell you listeners that it's a long list. And now your work with Pendo, it's just been wonderful to learn about your work and what you do and what you're doing right now. And you mentioned you have a book coming out soon, which is fantastic. So you've done so many things. What's next for you?
Wow, that's a big question. To be honest, I just want to transfer this innovation to different people, to different places, so that it grows beyond me, it grows above me, it grows differently in different places, in different countries, in different continents. I want to create that road. I always tell people that I'm a hippo. I'm a hippo because I'm actually a pygmy hippo, because pygmy hippo creates pathways where there are no paths for others to pass. That is what's next for me. That is what I want to see. I just want to see Pendo in action, just where I planted a seed. I just want to see a tree. And I want to see people sustaining it. I don't need to be there. I'm just going to pass this, and the mantle keeps passing.
Wonderful. Thank you, for being on the show, for sharing Pendo with us. And so how can people share your work with other people, and how can they learn more about you and Pendo?
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say that I'm putting up a website soon. Initially, I used to have Redefined by Akadi, but now I'm putting up a website called akadieco.org, which is going to be up soon. But you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I love traveling. I mean, Pendo travels, so it can be hubbed with Tania, it can be hubbed with University of Georgia, it can be hubbed with Kenyatta University. So wherever you want to have us. But we really want more partnerships. We really want more supporters, truly. And we'd want a lot of people who just want to experience Pendo. I think that's the best way anybody can support us. Thank you.
To learn more about Pendo Mazingira and to view a sample of Awino's body of work, be sure to visit the show notes for this episode. Here you will find links to Awino's articles and book. Thank you for joining us today. See you next time.